Here with the UFC light heavyweight champion, Poatan Alex Pereira, as well as his coach, Plinio Cruz, who's going to help us with some translation today. Now, Poatan, when you look at Khalil Rountree, was this somebody who was on your radar as a challenger this soon?
Poatan, quando você olha para o Khalil, ele é cara que já estava no seu radar para ser desafio tão logo assim?
Não, não era, não estava vendo ele ainda, né? A gente sabe que ele é o 8º do ranking, mas eu também não tinha visto algo dele. Eu vi quando ele lutou com o Anthony Smith, mas nem de olho nele, mais de olho no Anthony Smith, pelas nossas provocações que estava tendo na época, né? Aí então agora, com a luta marcada, eu tinha que ver algo dele, eu vi algumas coisas ali, da forma que ele se comporta, da forma que ele luta.
Well, no, he was not on my radar. The only time that I saw him before was when he fought Anthony Smith, because I was provoking back and forth with Anthony Smith, so I watched that fight more focused on Anthony. But of course, after the fight was booked, I started studying him, see how he behaves, and see how he carries himself in general.
This seems like a fight that was booked because it's such a delight for the fans. It's two phenomenal strikers. Do you think that that's why this was booked, because it's kind of a can't-miss fight?
Bom, essa foi uma luta grande para os fãs, né? Porque dois trocadores dessa maneira, parece ser uma luta muito boa. Você acha que a razão que marcaram essa luta foi por causa disso?
Não, com certeza, né? Pô, o UFC, eles gostam de fazer o show, né? Alguns outros atletas aí que não vou nem falar o nome, sabe que não pode não ser uma luta boa, né? Então acho que eles têm que fazer isso para os fãs, entendeu? E foi o que eles fizeram.
Absolutely, man. The UFC like to put shows together. You know what I mean? Other fighters that I'm not going to mention, they maybe fight a little more boring, so that's why they're not fighting, but definitely.
And you've got no reservations for fighting a guy like Ankalaev. That's what everybody keeps saying, is that you don't want to fight Ankalaev, but he's never been offered to you.
Bom, e você não tem... o pessoal fica sempre falando, né, que você não quer lutar com o Ankalaev, mas na verdade ele nunca foi oferecido para você, né?
Não, nunca foi, eu já até expliquei isso. Vou até falar aqui porque ver se acaba com isso. Não foi de agora, mas há um tempo eu venho falando que eu queria lutar com esse cara, pedir, né? Porque eu sou um cara assim competitivo, né? Então eu queria fazer isso e provar isso, entendeu? Só que não me deram. Mas aí eles sabem, o Ankalaev, o empresário deles, sabe que isso não é culpa minha, mas fica jogando a culpa pra cima de mim pra não mostrar que, pô, eles não têm interesse no Ankalaev, entendeu? Aí tá fazendo sacanagem comigo.
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you once for all. I said this before, I'm gonna say one more time. Ankalaev was never offered for me, and I feel that him and his manager keep pushing, saying that I don't want to fight them, but they know it's extra organization that do not want because it's boring. And I think that's messed up. They keep pushing that I say, oh, I don't want to fight, but actually, I want the fight. I asked for the fight. I like challenges. I tried to get that challenge, but was never offered for me, and I think it's just because of that.
E se ele não parar com esse joguinho dele aí, eu sabendo dessa não interesse da organização, eu vou dificultar para ele também.
And if honestly, if he don't stop making these little games, and I know the organization not interested in making that fight, I can make it hard. I can make it difficult. Ele falou, quando você fez assim, ele falou que parecia o Herbie Dean naquela luta.
And final question for you. I've always wondered this. Who are your all-time favorite fighters, whether kickboxing, boxing, MMA? Who are the fighters that you looked up to when you were coming up in the sport?
Pô, última pergunta, né? Todo mundo que sempre quis saber. Quais são os seus lutadores favoritos, assim, alguns, tipo no boxe, MMA, no kickboxing em geral?
Glover Teixeira, MMA, boxe, Mike Tyson, Badr Hari, kickboxing.
Glover Teixeira, MMA, Mike Tyson, boxing, Badr Hari, kickboxing.
I appreciate you. I mean, I didn't need you to translate that one, but I appreciate that. And Poatan, always appreciate you representing the Pota Show tribe, as always, here at the weigh-ins. And we look forward to the main event here in the Beehive State. It's yourself, Alex Poatan Pereira, against Khalil Rountree Jr. It's been a roller coaster year for Khalil Rountree, who looks to become the light heavyweight champion of the world on Saturday. And I want to go through that year with you. Let's start in December.
Okay.
You beat Anthony Smith.
Yes.
And you make a pretty impassioned plea that Alex Pereira would be a perfect opponent for you in terms of the fans getting an exciting fight.
Yes.
And you kind of put that out into the atmosphere.
Yes.
If you had not done that, do you think that this fight would be happening on Saturday?
No, not on Saturday. I don't think so. No, but I've seen it, and what I said was truth. What I said, I still back, and believe. So I'm glad I said it.
I think it kind of planted a seed in the minds of people where it was like, yeah, that fight is kind of a can't-miss fight. Let's get the wheels in motion. I think that is what was what gave you that fight against Jamal Hill that never came to fruition.
Yeah.
But when you got that fight with Jamal Hill, were you like, okay, the plan is starting to come into effect here?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the to be matched up against Hill at what was it, 303. Yeah, I think that was kind of the UFC saying like, okay, like let's see what you got, Yeah, so I think it was definitely to line me up for this fight.
All right, so this is the not so fun part of the roller coaster coming up here, where you've got someone at your house who works at the supplement company.
Yep.
They see that you're taking a supplement, and they say you shouldn't be taking that because it had
a supplement that they sent me.
That they sent you.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to be sent. It wasn't brought to my knowledge. It's like if you had a peanut allergy and I'm your nutritionist and I give you something and I'm like, oh my bad, there's peanuts in it, it's like, so yeah, it was brought to my attention. And yeah, immediately I called the UFC and told them what was going on. And then from there on, it was just like months of figuring everything out and letting the the system and Nevada State Athletic Commission and everything kind of look at the facts and make their decision.
I imagine there's a lot of lament there, and also the idea that you have to now basically hit the brakes on your own dream by calling the UFC and saying, I accidentally took this supplement that I didn't realize had a banned substance in it.
Yeah,
I think that's got to be heartbreaking for you in that moment.
Yeah, honestly, like heartbreak is the real thing that I felt. I mean, it really felt like as if like my wife like filed for divorce, or like I couldn't. I felt my entire like heart, my guts, everything just like sink, because I've been working so hard to build to build myself up. I never imagined that I'd be in a position like this in my career. I didn't know if I'd be fighting this year or next, and I'd been on such this good, like positive energy. I'm working hard, and then everything just kind of dropped in the blink of an eye. So I didn't spend too much time dwelling on it. I just decided like, okay, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be out, but I'm going to pick myself up and just continue to train hard.
It must be difficult not to dwell on it though, because you've made this phone call that you proactively made.
Yeah.
You now have halted this dream and the momentum towards that fight with Alex Pereira, which makes so much sense for your career right now. And you have to sit with that, with the knowledge that like this may never happen now, even though you were so close to making it happen with that fight with Jamal Hill.
Yeah. All I can say is like there were moments where it did feel as if, everything was gone. I thought that I'd have to, restart. I thought that there would be a chance that other guys would, fight ahead of me and it would just push me further and further back. But I'm glad that that wasn't the case.
And that's the great part about this story is you said you were having a particularly bad day when the UFC called and says that you are going to get a fight with Alex Pereira. I mean, how much did that blindside you, knowing that like you didn't have another fight in between? Suddenly this offer comes onto the table. Do you almost feel like that was good karma that you called the UFC and notified them about what was going on and that it kind of found a way of making itself right?
Yeah, at this point and at that point, I couldn't really say anything else other than like divine timing, you can't make this kind of stuff up. Like it was just, everything was so weird, so out of my control. This whole situation, I felt like I had no control over, over everything. So, yeah, it was surprising. It was, it definitely turned my complete day around in that moment. Yeah.
And it's funny because they pass over Ankalaev to give you this fight. Ankalaev's fighting soon, right? So he would have been available for this matchup. And you didn't hear a lot of complaints from the fans. Like, we didn't hear a lot of people being like, well, this isn't really fair, because I think people are so excited about the potential of what this matchup brings to the table. When you look at how the UFC operates as a promotion, do you think that they should make more fights like this where you have a champion that stylistically matches up in a way with another challenger that makes for a fun fight, rather than perhaps whoever's technically next in line from a ranking standpoint?
I think so. I like and I appreciate, the UFC for what they do. Even after speaking with with some people in the UFC, it does make sense. And I think, one thing that a statement that goes around in the fight world is styles make fights. But one thing that I also, take into consideration is the fans. It's people around the world who spend their money on these pay-per-views. They could do anything else on a Saturday night. They could take their kids ice skating. They can go out for a movie, go out to dinner. But these people choose to spend money and sit home and watch us fight. So I think that, the way that the UFC operates and the fact that, they do put these like stylistic matchups together, whether I'm number 8 or number 1, I think that it gives the fans an entertaining night, an entertaining Saturday night, and one that they don't feel like they wasted their money on.
And I know you don't listen to what a lot of these interviews say, but Alex Pereira said he doesn't believe that you will not shoot a takedown on him unless you promise not to and say that you will donate a portion of your purse to a charity. Are you willing to do that to convince him that you're not going to be shooting a takedown?
What I said because this is the first time that I've heard this in my last interview, and I said, look, I'll donate to charity regardless. And I can give you my word and give him my word that I'll donate to charity regardless. I'm not a betting guy. I don't place bets and all that stuff. And I don't plan to shoot a takedown, It's just not in the plans. But yeah, I mean, if I do or if I don't, I'll donate to charity. But I can say, like, that's not the plan. If it happens instinctively, I get rocked or something like that and it happens, who knows? I don't know how my body's going to respond. But I'm just saying the plan is not to go in there and switch who I am as a fighter.
Has your instinct ever been to shoot a takedown? Do you think that instinct would actually happen in that situation?
I haven't seen it happen yet. I haven't done it yet. So I don't think so.
I overheard you say in the press conference that you, I guess, have spoken to Sean Strickland recently and he apologized to you. I mean, I can understand why the two of you don't really get along. You're very different people, and you're somebody who has not been quiet about the fact that you are pretty sensitive in general. So when you look at him, he's helping Alex Pereira out for that fight. I'm sure that doesn't matter to you at all, but what was this conversation with him like, and are you uncomfortable being in a room with this guy?
I mean, the conversation, again, was a surprise. I didn't know that he was in the same room. I went to approach Dan Ige to congratulate him on, being the stud that he is. Sean approached me, kind of just told me, sorry for the stuff that he said in a way. He thinks I'm a liberal and that's it, but there was like a shaking of hands and, like a pat on the back type of thing to kind of just, clear the air. So I don't see anything being uncomfortable from here on out. But who knows? I mean, like, he could say something, but I'm at a point where, like, it's drama, and I'm, 35 years old. Like, what do I have? Like, why would I entertain anything that is drama? So everything's good.
And lastly, you've talked about in Las Vegas, growing up in Las Vegas, and how you would drive by the Palace Station and see the UFC posters, or the event advertisements throughout basically your entire life in Las Vegas from when you were driving. Have you seen yourself on the poster yet on that particular billboard, and if so, what were the emotions like?
So the billboard on the 15 by the Palace Station has been taken down. But the one on the side of the Apex, I saw it the day that they put it up. I had my mom come out, my brother, my family, just to kind of give us a reminder, because the day I started training, we were 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and with the only thing that we could, hope for was to kind of fight our way out of that situation. So we all were there to kind of see the moment and to see that, like, times are changing, and that as a family, we've come a long way.
This is your first main event also.
Yeah, first main event.
I imagine that this big of a stage,
it's cool,
it must
man.
just mean the world to you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. I'm glad that I'm finally here.
We are too. I'm really looking forward to it, man. I mean, you've been nothing but gracious to me.
Thanks, sir. Yeah.
And I appreciate that very much. I appreciate everything that you've brought to the game, and I think that the folks in Las Vegas should be very happy to have you as a representative of their city, because I know that win or lose, you're going to give a lot back to the city and help people that were in your situation when you were 19, 20 years old and felt like you had no future. You can help empower those people. I know that you have the ability to do that. So
Thank you.
I think that that is a very powerful thing, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens on Saturday.
Thanks so much.
Here with Kayla Harrison. It's her second UFC fight on Saturday against Ketlen Vieira as the bantamweight division starts to shake out a little bit. And I was thinking today, the main event, Peña and Pennington, is kind of like the last chapter of the Nunes era. Would you agree with that?
And if you're saying that they're old news, yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, that's kind of an impolite way of saying that. But what I mean is, if you look at a lot of the challengers that are coming up right now in bantamweight, it seems like there's a little bit of new
fresh
oxygen in the division.
Yeah.
You got yourself, of course, coming in. I think you're the one that's top of mind for a lot of people. But we saw what Norma Dumont did recently. Incredible win. Carla Hossa looked really good recently. Macy Chason. Like, we're starting to see a lot of fresh blood in this division. I think that it's almost the changing of the guard after Saturday.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Thank God.
Are you excited for that?
For the changing of the guard or for...
Yeah, for the division to kind of have some new challengers that are emerging.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the goal is for me to go out, beat up Ketlen, win the title, and then as much fresh blood as they want to bring in, line them up, I'll knock them down. Everybody
wants to ask you about Pennington, Peña, Nunes. Nobody seems to want to ask you about Ketlen Vieira, so let me be perhaps the first to do so. Tell me about Ketlen and her game. I mean, she's big and scary. I mean, it's not an easy matchup for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ketlen's a good fighter. I think she's well-rounded. I think she's got a judo black belt, a jiu-jitsu black belt. Her striking is decent. But I think that I'm a big, scary fighter, and I think that I'm better everywhere. I think my submissions are better. I think my judo is definitely better, and I think my striking's better. And when you're the best in the world, you're the best in the world.
In your last fight with Holly Holm, you had a bet with Mike Brown. I forget what happened, but you fell just short. I think you had to beat her in the first round by knockout or something. So is there another bet on the table with you and your coach?
Oh, actually, we haven't made a bet. I made a bet with Alex, but I haven't made a bet with Mike yet.
With Alex Pereira?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the bet?
Well, I mean, I can't. We may have made a bet about his grappling and my striking, and if one of us can, we might be trying to mix it up here. So, yeah.
Well, you can't tell me because it could tip off the opponents
Correct.
for what's happening in the fight.
Correct.
Okay, will you tell me after the fight?
Yes.
Okay, well, I look forward to that.
Okay.
So let's talk about that main event. You got Pennington and Peña. Raquel's on a 6-fight win streak. Have you been impressed with what you've seen from her in recent years?
I mean, she did it the hard way. She's come a long way, and good for her. She's UFC champion. I think that's awesome.
And I sat down with Julianna Peña earlier today, and
I'm
I asked,
so sorry.
Well, I asked her point blank. You keep making these allegations of steroid use with Kayla Harrison. Like, what leads you to believe that somebody who was in the Olympics and was under the most rigorous testing available would be using steroids? And she said that from her experiences of going to American top teams, she would be surprised if you had never taken steroids. Do you have any idea what she's talking about?
I've heard her say in other interviews that girls at American Top Team took steroids, and I mean, I just think that she's an idiot, and she loves to hear herself talk, and she's building in excuses to not fight me. She's gonna milk. If she wins this title, she will milk it for as long as she possibly can. She'll get injured. She'll say I'm on steroids. She'll say that she wants to fight Amanda. She'll say that I don't deserve it. And I think she's just full of shit. And my time is coming, and more importantly, her time is about to come. And she'll find out the hard way that good, solid work ethic can get you very, very far.
Well, I did do my job and asked her right afterwards, would these accusations preclude you from fighting Kayla Harrison? And she said, no, I'll fight anybody who's put in front of me.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't believe her, but that's good to hear. I mean, yeah, whatever.
I mean, she's the underdog in this fight. She will need to win the fight first.
Right. We all have to take the next step before we can even start talking about this. I just think she's nauseating.
All right, I want you to rank these women that have not fought Amanda Nunes yet, the ones that I kind of had mentioned. So we've got Ketlen Vieira, we've got Carla Hossa, we've got Macy Chason, and we've got Norma Dumont. So if you were to rank those four based on what you've seen, what would those rankings be?
Probably Caitlin, then Norma, then Macy, then Rosa.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know. Listen, they're all just names. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyone, any day, anywhere, anytime.
Did you feel the same way in the Olympics? Like when you saw the list of women
Yes.
representing other countries, that's how you looked at it?
Yes.
It's just like, this is just another name?
When you know, you know. Like when you, yeah, it's my time. I believe in myself. I believe that this is my purpose. I believe that I am the best in the world, and I will fight anyone in order to prove that.
How does this upcoming weight cut feel knowing that you've already had one? And are you thinking of making 135 pounds on the button just in case?
Yeah, of course. I'm definitely thinking about it. My team is like telling me to chill out and calm down, and that extra
Nothing
pound
you
is
haven't
a
heard
lot.
before?
Yeah, well, yeah, all the time. But I really want to. They're just like, let's see how we feel, and we'll know before if you need to do that, and whatever. They're playing it safe. What was the other part of the question? Oh, yeah. So I think before, it was very much a faith-based decision to fight at 135, and I was very unsure if I could even make the weight. And so that was a different kind of fear. And this time it's not fear, it's more just like anticipation of like, oh, this is going to suck. And I've just spent the last 12 weeks of my life being the most, disciplined psycho. And I really... Yeah, I mean, it's all worth it. Listen, on the other side of that scale is everything I ever wanted. So, not everything, but one thing I really want. So.
And finally, I'll say when you win this fight on Saturday, because you'll correct me if I don't say that.
Thank you.
Will you sit with me and watch a round of Pennington and Peña rather than me interview you? Would you rather do that, and we can just sit on the mic together and talk through what's happening?
Paint dry? Is that what you're asking me to do?
Our viewers tend to love watching paint dry, so that's why I'm saying that we should do that.
Yes, I would be happy to. I would be happy to do that with you.
Okay, cool. I'll let
Only
the PR
because
team know.
it's you, though, but otherwise.
All right, deal's a deal. I appreciate that. Best of luck on Saturday,
Thanks,
and it's
Aaron.
always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you.
Julianna Peña looks to become a two-time women's bantamweight champion this weekend when she faces Raquel Pennington. And I was writing about your division and how this is kind of like the end of an era, you versus Raquel. If you look at all of the different challengers from Amanda Nunes's reign, it looks like this is kind of the final chapter of that era. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I like the sound of Peña two-time champion. The Peña power does it again. I like the sound of that. What about you?
I always like speaking with you because you're a great interview. So the longer you're champion, the more time you're going to be forced to sit down with me, which I appreciate.
So you're admitting it without actually admitting it. I do a better job of promoting the division than the current champion.
I would say that that's probably a fair thing to say. I mean, you tend to be a lot more comfortable doing interviews. I don't know if Raquel, she seems to be getting more comfortable doing interviews, but over the course of her career, she didn't do a lot of them, whereas you're a little bit more front-facing.
Yeah, because I feel like I will be able to represent the bantamweight division better than she can, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm planning on winning on Saturday night.
I will say, as somebody who covers the sport from Canada, I am a little bit remorseful that you didn't fight in Vancouver or Toronto because we could have gotten more sound bites than we did, perhaps.
Yeah, and the only person that is really truly to blame is myself. I heard that Raquel had said she was planning for Kayla and me at the same time, and that's actually a fair statement. I can't be mad at that because I do end up getting hurt. But she did make a mistake there because she's going to see on Saturday night that she should have just prepared for just me.
What do you think of Raquel's run? 6 in a row for her. Seems like she's really coming into her own as a fighter.
I think that that's great for her. Congratulations. She's done everything that she can to earn this point. But it's my job to show and remind the world why I am going to be the bantamweight champion and why I am the champion.
You mentioned reminding the world. It has been some time since we last saw you fight. It was the second Nunes fight. So how much have you improved in that time? Because of injuries, you haven't been able to fight, but at the same time, when you take that kind of time to focus on yourself and your game, I feel like that leads to the biggest gains as a fighter.
Yeah, and I do think that, some of the mistakes that people make is coming in there too soon and not giving them the chance to recuperate and recover the way that they should. For me, my body has always forced me to say, you need time off, you need a break. And through those times of rest and healing, I have always grown as a fighter. So I'm very thankful for the time that I have off, and listening to your body will do wonders for you.
What has the vibe been at Valley Flow Systems? You've got Bilal Muhammad becoming champion. Ignacio Bahamondes has just had an incredible win. So I imagine that the energy in that building must be great.
The energy is great in that building. I think in the Chicagoland area, you're not going to find a better gym that has high-level, high-caliber fighters fighting every single day together. It's like a band of brothers and sisters, and we're all high-level fighters coming out of VFS, Valley Flow. So it's a great energy, great vibes. Everybody is, working hard, and we care about each other, and holding each other accountable and just doing everything that we can to push the fighter to get to the points where they can get their hand raised at the highest level. So it's a special time to be a part of that gym.
Kayla Harrison signed with the UFC this year, and like I mentioned, with the UFC kind of turning to a new chapter, we've got a lot of new contenders coming up in this division, and she is one of them. It seems like you've been pushing her buttons a little bit lately and talking about performance-enhancing drugs. Is there anything to that? Like, when you bring something like that up, it's obviously a sensitive subject for any fighter.
Yeah, obviously I can't prove anything, but I know based on my own personal experiences of going to American Top Team, you're not going to convince me at all 110% that girl has never touched steroids before. I don't believe it.
So you think that there's something with that gym in particular?
Of course, I know that there's something with that gym in particular, but just even her and her physique and everything like that. You can, tell me how big and dense your bones are all day long. You're not going to convince me that she has not used performance-enhancing drugs in the past of some sort, of some kind, at some point in time in her life.
Well, does that give you any sort of hesitation on facing her in the future if you believe that?
No, I will fight whoever the UFC puts in front of me. I have not turned away from any single fighter ever, and I know that once that cage door closes, I haven't seen anybody that has that will and determination that I have and that I possess. So it's never been about who is on the other side of the octagon. It's always been about me and making sure that I get to the octagon and then just doing what I do best. So it doesn't matter who I face. I'm always facing myself inside there.
Let me mention some other challengers that are coming up in this division and tell me what you think of some of them. I mentioned in this article that I'm writing right now some of the fighters that never got a chance to fight Amanda Nunes. You've got Ketlin Vieira, who's on the card this weekend. You've got Macy Chason. Carol Hosa's looked great. Norma Dumont. Do any of them stand out to you?
The thing is that when they had the opportunities to call to fight for Amanda, you can't tell me that when they got their wins that they weren't calling for none of them were calling for the title. None of them were saying Amanda's name. They were crickets. They wouldn't even breathe her name or even think that could be fathomable. It didn't matter if I got 1 win, 2 win, even off a loss or not off a loss. I was always calling for Amanda. I was never afraid to say her name. I have never cowered away from fighting the best in the division. So it's always so funny that, now that she's gone, all of a sudden everybody wants to start touting off. But before, when she was there, they were quiet as church mice.
I know fighters can't bet on fights, but if I gave you a betting line, Amanda Nunes at even money, will she fight in the UFC again? Would you bet the yes or the no?
I would bet the yes.
And why do you think she fights again in the UFC?
Well, I do believe and I know that she feels that she has nothing to prove to the world or anybody against me. But that's a lie. We're 1-1. You don't go 1-1 in anything and then just walk away. You have to settle it. You have to settle it. And not only that, but it would be the biggest fight in women's mixed martial arts history, in my opinion. And so I definitely think that it's something that the fans want. I think that she retired too early. I know that Dana believes that as well. I don't truly believe that she's done.
And finally, how busy do you want to stay? Because injuries have stopped you from fighting, as I'm sure, as much as you'd like to. Is it basically just as long as you're healthy, you'll just keep taking fights and roll with it as long as you can?
It's never about anybody or any opponent or anything other than myself and getting across the finish line. With that being said, if I was 65 years old, I'll be I'll take it and I'll fight. You know what I mean? I'm always going to be the last woman standing. I'm always going to be the one that's going to be fighting and not stopping. I'm going to run through the brick wall when I'm 45 years old and thinking that I'm going to make it happen, and some way or another I will find a way to make it happen. So I want to fight until I cannot, and even if I can't, I'm still going to probably try to find a way to still fight. So it's all going to just be variant on how I'm feeling and like you said, how healthy I am.
Have you tried to pump the brakes at all? Because you talked about in a lot of interviews leading up to this that your house is kind of like a place that you go for a couple hours at a time. You go to sleep, you have maybe 1 hour a day to yourself because you're so focused on your training, and you told me all of the different places that you're training right now. Do you need to maybe take your foot off the pedal a little bit in order for your own self-preservation?
Well, that has been the reason why I have these injuries, is because I'm pedal to the metal, nonstop, all the time, all gas, no brakes. Thank you, Alex Panos. I never stop, and that is kind of what has hindered me in my career, is just going balls to the walls all the time. You're absolutely right. I do need to take time for pause, for rest, to pump the brakes a little bit so that I can preserve myself.
Well, you're saying I'm right. Are you going to do that? Can you do that?
I don't know that I can do that. I don't know, but I know that I have some burgers to eat with my daughter after this fight. So that's one thing that I know that I'm going to take some time to do.
Well, hopefully you enjoy every bite of that burger, and hopefully you'll have a title belt on your shoulder or around your waist at that time. Thank you for doing this, Julianna.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
She's the undisputed women's bantamweight champion. She is Raquel Pennington, and she is taking on Julianna Peña this Saturday in your first title defense. And you're a very reserved person, I've found over the years. You don't really call anybody out. But for this particular fight, this is somebody who you have legitimate animosity towards. So does it feel any different for this fight week in terms of your opponent and getting out of bed for this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fight that I'm excited for. For the true fans who have been out there and they know the Ultimate Fighter, Julianna and we were on the Ultimate Fighter 11 years ago. I think initially everybody expected us to match up in the finale. She ended up winning Fight of the Season. She won the show, and I won Fight of the Season. And it was kind of just one of those things. I sustained some injuries in that fight. And when you know how that's filmed, like to try to prepare and go into a semifinal fight almost a week and a half later with a fractured forearm, a broken hand, and stitches, like that's a little tough, but I did the best that I could. And so it's a fight that I've been wanting for 11 years now. I don't know how our paths haven't crossed, but hey, here we are.
Yeah, so the excitement for this one, does it feel any different? Like, does it feel elevated for that reason?
This is just exciting. Like, to be here, it's not even about the world title. Like, it definitely brings a different emotion. It's not a fight that they called me and they're like, hey, 8 weeks ago, would you like to fight Julianna? This is a fight that I've had the opportunity to think about for 11 years now. So the excitement's there. She is somebody who absolutely gets under my skin. But the emotions are balanced with that. It's just something that we all know that she has a master's degree in yapology. And so now I have the chance to finally go out there and punch her in the face. And all those times that she irritated me on the show, get to punch her in the face.
Is that like tapology? It just keeps track of all of the trash talk she has over the years?
In my head, yeah.
You should register yapology.
Right?
And give her all the different entries for over the years.
She's a yapper.
So when you look at this particular fight with the era of, I guess, Amanda Nunes and what's been left over from that generation, is this kind of the last chapter of that? That's the way it looks to me. I feel like everybody who has challenged Amanda Nunes for the title is not really in the title mix anymore.
Yeah.
It's just yourself and Julianna. Now we've got all these new challengers that are emerging, and it's almost like we're opening a new page after Saturday for what the bantamweight division will look like going forward.
Absolutely. It's exciting. I've sat here and I've talked to other athletes, and it's crazy because at some point, like within the next few years, all the OGs that like we're going to be on to a different chapter in our life. And it's crazy to see how far this sport has grown, and especially for women, and, all the different divisions that are here now, and all the talent that's coming up. It's incredible. I feel like, Ronda was here and she was a dominating champion. And then when she left, everybody's like, what's the division going to do? And then all of a sudden you had Amanda, and then it's like, oh, she left. Now what's the division going to do? And here's my journey and here's my path with it all. And recently, Kayla, I feel like she's the new Holly Holm who came in. When Holly came into the UFC, she had a massive hype train behind her. And that's Kayla. Kayla just got signed. She has this massive hype train. So there's a lot of noise around the division, and that's exciting. It's like, I feel like Amanda went through and she kind of just took everybody out. And it's like, what can I do with my career? How can I build my legacy and everything? Because I've always been the underdog my entire career. People don't give me enough credit at all. But if you look at the statistics, I hold so many different records in the women's bantamweight division, which is really fun and it's really cool. And now this is just another opportunity. This is a fight this weekend to where it's a history fight with me and Julianna. Let's close that chapter. And then you have Kayla who's here. And so now I feel like I can go out there, and that can be another step in my legacy.
All it took was a 6-fight win streak and a championship for you to be the favorite this weekend against Julianna Peña. It's about time that they finally recognize the skill.
Yeah, right? I mean, come on, guys. But at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. I focus on myself, and I go out there, and I'm doing exactly what I need to for myself as an individual, achieving goals and just achieving things for me, and taking pride in that. And I'm doing everything I need to change my family's life. And that alone, that's what it's about. And along the way, I'm inspiring all these young kids, other adults, even other athletes. And I always said when I was younger, I dreamed of being a professional athlete, and if I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, it was going to be a doctor. I've always wanted to help people. People just melt my heart. And so having my platform and just being here, it's just I'm doing what I need to, but then at the same time I get to inspire people and I get to see it. So eventually one day I'm excited to step to the side and look back and see everything I've accomplished. I have my daughter now, and I get to be her greatest teacher. We have all the kids in our family and stuff, and just seeing the inspiration in them and the excitement, that's what this is about.
You look at Tisha, she's fighting Carla Esparza. They were on the same season, and now it's Carla's retirement fight. Are you and Julianna the last two standing from the season?
We are.
Yeah,
we
so
are.
it's pretty, like you said, it's kind of cool to see everything come full circle. I know there's still a couple from Tisha's season that are still going, like Rose is still fighting Angela Hill. So it's interesting that those two fights are kind of on the same card. You've got two people that were participants on the same season of The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, there's a little bit less bad blood between Tisha and Carla. I saw we're kind of chatting earlier
now. I know Tisha's the type, she's always, they had their own show. That all-female season was a wild season. I remember being a fan on the outside, and I'm like, oh, let's skip this reality because there was just too much drama. But yeah, for everybody who's out there and whatnot, like, this is a history weekend. You have Julianna and I from the first ever women's season when they allowed us, and then Tisha was the one and only all women's season, and so it's really cool to see these two fights happening.
I feel like they need to do that for your division for like next year with The Ultimate Fighter, because I was looking at it today, and like I said, I think that this is kind of the next chapter. But if you look at all of the fighters that are coming up in your division, you've got like Eileen Perez, you've got Carol Hossa, Macy Chason. Everybody starting next year is going to be over 30. Like, we don't have anybody in the 20s.
What's wrong with being in your 30s?
Oh, nothing. But what I mean is the division.
Listen, I think I'm actually about to break a new record. They want to give out all these records. So when I won the world title, they're like, you're the oldest to, as far as a female, you're the oldest to win a title. And then now this weekend, I'm going to be the oldest to defend a title. So what do you know what I mean?
And I mean, Bilal Muhammad just did what you did as well at 36, winning a championship in 170 and below. So it is cool to see. My only point is I feel like the division needs a little bit more depth. Like, it feels to me like all of these up-and-coming fighters have been around for a while. And I think a lot of that is, a credit to Amanda for making it very difficult, and also credit to people like yourself for being, standing at the top of that ranking and being so, hanging on to it, because the talent hasn't been able to catch up to where folks like yourself, Julianna, Ketlin Vieira, where you guys have been.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with you. But this sport is constantly evolving. It's only getting bigger and bigger. And so within the next few years, I mean, you have kids that are starting wee little, and I will tell you what, seeing the talent that's coming, like, there's going to be, I can agree with you to do a show and bring a little bit more talent into there, but throughout these next few years to come, there's going to be a lot of talent, and they're only getting younger. Mm-hmm. So I think, with Dana White Contender Series, I mean, you see all these young athletes getting signed. You have Elijah, who's from Colorado Springs, Elijah Smith, and he just got signed. He's young. And so...
I mean, he's Gilbert Smith's son. Gilbert Smith was on The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah,
so,
but it's just like they're getting younger. Because back in the day, I mean, to be that young, it's like, no, go find some more fights and then come back and try again. And so, I mean, it's only going to grow, and there's going to be a lot more talent that's coming in.
We're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to the next chapter of the women's bantamweight division beginning this Saturday with your first title defense against Julianna Peña. Thank you so much for doing this. And the weather here, much nicer than it was in Toronto earlier this year when we had you there.
Way nicer. Oh, my gosh. It's fall weather. I'm in love. Everything has aligned. It's a great week. It's going to be a great weekend. I'm excited.
Actually, last thing about that experience in Toronto before we wrap this up. You had all of the stuff going on with Sean Strickland that week. The weather was terrible. You were sick. You could barely get out of bed on the Saturday. Having gone through that week and emerged as the champion, what does that tell you about yourself?
My coaches have always told me, they were like, listen, on your worst day, if you just go out there and, like, you can push through and you can win, but you just have to make up your mind. The mind is a really powerful thing, and sometimes in those moments, like, it takes a lot to believe in that. And that's what that weekend was about. It was the worst week. I put on the face. I did everything that I needed to, but, like, it was a terrible week. And they said, the pressure was on because it's just like, that was my second time fighting for a world title. I knew it wouldn't come around again. And so we had a team meeting. My sports psychologist came in, and we just sat there and we really talked. And it was like, hey, like, this is the perfect fight. This is the opportunity. You just have to make up your mind. So our complete game plan just went out the window. And it's like, hey, grind this out. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Go out there, conquer the ultimate goal. And the best part about fighting, you get another fight. And then you can go out there and be that completely different athlete. So anybody who knows my career and follows me, I have constantly climbed mountains and fallen and climbed some more mountains and gotten back up, and now I'm sitting on the top of the mountain. But, I mean, that came within here. It came with the heart that I have and just that discipline and that dedication. So it was just another mountain I had to climb that weekend. It was not fun, But here we are. I achieved the ultimate goal, and I'm the 6th ever women's bantamweight champion.
And it fits with you being from Colorado. So we're looking forward to seeing you. You're
Absolutely.
firing at all cylinders right now. No injuries. Expect a very dangerous Raquel Pennington this Saturday.
100%.
2024 has been the year for Georgia in mixed martial arts. And before I ask you about your fight, Merab Dvalishvili, another Georgian champion. How did that make you feel?
No, it's you mentioned it right. It's a big year for Georgia, and not only in MMA. It's also we had a great year in soccer. Our team was very good on Europe, and Merab now have all this success, and all MMA community in Georgia. We was big there, but now it's like amazing. And Merab also probably will be here tomorrow for my fight, and you guys will see him how we're proud having another champion like Merab.
It's so interesting to me because Merab is such a prolific wrestler, and then you look at Ilya and his striking is amazing, and you're somebody who really mixes it up. Growing up in Georgia, what's, I guess, the combat sports, I guess, pathway? Like, what are people learning in Georgia from a young age?
If we are talking about Georgia, it's definitely wrestling, because wrestling is a national sport for us. We had even before it was Olympic, and it's quite big in Georgia. But if we are talking about these guys, of course, they now live in different countries, and that's why they have different skills. In Georgia, we would probably only wrestlers.
You did great in your last fight against Anthony Smith at 205 pounds. What made you decide to come back to your 185 pounds? I know it's your normal weight class, but given how well you performed at 205, did you consider making a move to that division?
I have like 3 fights in UFC, 3 wins, and my career started at 205. And even first fight in UFC was 205, a knockout victory in Abu Dhabi. But like my friend says, Roman decided to be professional more. And because 205 I never cut nothing and didn't cut this time also. And that's why I'm fighting 185.
Yeah, I understand that. I always wonder about this because a lot of fighters want to take that approach so they can cut the weight. But sometimes stylistically, I feel like at 205 pounds, maybe you match up better than a lot of the other ranked fighters versus at 185 pounds, for example.
I can agree with that with you, but I have no success in my 185, my weight class. I don't think it will be very hard for me also to get a ranked opponent in 205. That's why I have all this opportunity in both weight classes, and I will use this advantage.
You should be ranked at 205 pounds. That surprised me after that particular event that they didn't put you in the rankings.
I agree with you, but it's probably some kind of politics what they are playing, and that doesn't bother me. Nothing can touch me at all, even stuff like that. I'm glad that I have my position in UFC, and I will use any opportunity what I will have here.
Well, people tend to put people in a respective weight class, even though when you get a win at 205, like Max Holloway, for example, is I think ranked number 10 at lightweight. He beat Justin Gaethje, who was ranked number 3, and the ratings. It was still a lightweight fight.
Yeah. Nobody knows how they are making these decisions, and I don't have the same no answer about this situation.
Well, you just focus on Roman, and that's what's important. So we're looking forward to seeing you against Kevin Holland. I spoke to Kevin earlier today. He says he thinks speed is going to be a big factor for him in this fight. How do you expect to deal with that?
You never know with me. I'm a professional grappler, world class. I have big wins in grappling, but in UFC I don't have no submission at all. That's why you never know what I will do there. Who knows, maybe I will have first submission in UFC.
Well, Roman Dolidze looks to continue the reign of success for Georgia in 2024, and that next domino could be tomorrow night against Kevin Holland here in Utah for UFC 307. I'm here with the 2-time women's strawweight champion, Carla Esparza, who fights for the final time this Saturday against Tisha Pennington. So I'm curious, you're 1 year postpartum. What made you decide to come back for one more fight? I mean, there's a lot that you have to do with your body and your training and how you adjust all of that to have one more fight. So why just one, and why now?
Well, I knew after my last fight that I wanted to do at least 1 or 2 more, in part for the fans, just, to give them heads up for whoever hasn't, come out to see me live, but also for myself just to kind of prove that I could do it and I could get past that hump and, just leave on my own terms.
Has this been the hardest training camp for you because of I guess, everything that you had to go through in the last year or so?
Oh, most definitely in terms of scheduling and sleep and lack of rest, for sure. I mean, I've prepared for a few title fights, so in some other ways those were a bit harder. But, yeah, I would definitely say this camp has been challenging.
It's kind of a full circle opponent in Tisha Pennington. You guys were on The Ultimate Fighter together. You fought on that show, and now you'll end your career fighting against her. So when that was presented to you as the opponent, did that make a lot of sense to you?
The fight did make a lot of sense to me in so many ways. Just like you said, The Ultimate Fighter, we're both moms, so we lost our rankings in the time off. So it just made so much sense. But in a way, I was kind of like, oh man, like we're both moms. Like we'd kind of been chatting a little before, so I was like, I felt a little mixed feelings about it. But at the end of the day, it's a job, and it's we're just gonna go out there and have fun.
You were even chatting today. You ran into each other, reminisced a little bit about your kids. So what's it like seeing Tisha just a few days before you guys are gonna fight?
It's I don't know. It's a little bit like, oh shoot, there she is, But I mean, we've already fought, so it's not like I'm, sizing her up, and there's no bad blood. So I mean, it was cool to kind of like chat and catch up a little bit. Even she was like, "Well, I didn't want to be weird and say, but I want to see your baby." I was like, "I want to see your little girl too." So it was actually kind of nice.
And the first time you fought each other, you guys lived in the same house together, so it's not like spending time with her before a fight makes that much of a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Like on The Ultimate Fighter, we're cooking eggs next to each other in the kitchen, and living together. So there's it's not going to be anything out of the norm to just run into each other at fight week.
Do you like having a finality behind this fight, knowing that this is your last fight? And how do you think that your approach will change? I'm sure that when you fight, just generally, you're always thinking like you're fighting like it's your last fight. You're fighting like everything's on the line, because everything is always on the line in these fights. But with this being the final fight, do you think that your mental approach changes at all?
I think normally knowing how important it is to get your hand raised as far as moving up in the rankings and moving towards the title, I think it's a little bit of a different mindset. Whereas, of course, I still want to get my hand raised. I still put the work in, and I still have that mentality. But now I feel like, have a little bit more fun and kind of show a little bit more tools, hopefully, that I've kind of kept hidden these last few years. So that would be cool.
Right, here's the fun part for me, because knowing that this is your last fight, I can ask you this question and know that I'm going to get a good answer. Because if I always ask in 1 year from today, who's the champion of your division going to be, your answer is naturally going to be Carla Esparza. But because you won't be competing in a year, and you fought Tatiana Suarez, and you fought Yan Xiaonan and Zhang Weili, and so many of these fighters in the strawweight division, you're almost like an encyclopedia of strawweight mixed martial arts. So 1 year from today, who is the champion of the women's strawweight division?
I think Tatiana Suarez will be the champion. She is just... her wrestling is too good, and if she comes with that same game that she's had all these years, I think it's going to be hard to stop her.
And do you think that she'll end up facing Zhang Weili? I think she's fighting Virna Jandiroba next, who I think you've also fought, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So you know your way around the strawweight division.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a number one contender fight, so you're going to have highly skilled opponents on both ends, but it's just that wrestling, I feel, is going to be a little bit, and that physicality is going to be a little bit too hard to deal with. I wouldn't even be surprised if she got a sub, which would say a lot against, a high-level black belt like Jandiroba.
How long do you think that record that you hold right now? I think it's the longest duration between capturing a title for the second time. Do you think that is a record that's going to take a long time for someone to be able to eclipse and beat?
I definitely do. Usually when you see somebody regaining a title, it's an immediate rematch or, after a few fights. I think the record before was around 4 years by, I believe it was Frank Mir. But, almost doubling that record, I could see that standing for quite a while.
I think that people diminish the accomplishment because of what that second fight was. But I actually think that is a really ignorant view of what you accomplished, because you did what you needed to do that night to win that fight, right? If Rose would have fought differently, you would have fought differently. And what you did in that fight was, again, enough to bring back the championship, to become a two-time champion. I really hope that people understand that the achievement that you have is a great achievement that is very difficult for people to achieve.
I hope so, because, when you're in a title fight, it's usually not like you just got this fight on short notice and, you go in there and win it. I mean, it's an accumulation of a lot of high-level opponents building up to that fight, and then, winning that fight is huge. So, I hope people kind of look at the big picture and kind of see that accomplishment for what it is.
And final question, I know it's not up to you, but do you expect to be a UFC Hall of Famer? First champion of the strawweight division, won it again a second time with that long space of time in between. Do you expect that one day you're going to be enshrined in the UFC Hall of Fame?
I expect it. I hope. You never know, but I mean, I think I've done everything that, almost I've definitely had some of the highest accolades in the division, and I wouldn't see why not.
Well, it's one of 2 fights this weekend with 2 Ultimate Fighters competitors that were in the same house together. A little bit less bad blood in this one, and we're looking forward to seeing your retirement fight. Carla, thank you for all that you've achieved in the UFC. Thank you for always being such a class act to deal with as well outside of the octagon, and we look forward to your next chapter as a mom and whatever else comes next for you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for covering my journey these years.